Aloha, spooky nerds, and welcome to Talking Strange, a paranormal pop culture show with the Den of Geek Network, where we discuss the entertainment of the unexplained. I am your host, Aaron Sagers, journalist, author, researcher of pretty much all things weird, and currently seen on Travel Channel and Discovery Plus's Paranormal Caught on Camera. And let me tell you a little bit about the movie that we are going to be talking about today. It is called Hellbender. And on Thursday, February 24th, the horror streaming service Shudder unleashes this new critically acclaimed film. It's both a cult horror, it's a coming of age story, it's a story about mothers and daughters, parents and children. And in Hellbender, 16-year-old Izzy, played by Zelda Adams, suffers from a rare illness that has kept her, let's say, isolated on a mountaintop with her mother, played by Toby Poser. And Izzy begins to question her sickness, and as she does so, she pushes back against her mom and against her confinement. She befriends Amber, played by Lulu Adams, who is another girl on the mountain, and it would seem that Izzy's newfound happiness is derailed after she eats a live worm. I think we can all relate to that. That's part of a juvenile game, and she discovers an insatiable, violent hunger awakened within her. And to understand the hunger, Izzy must learn the dark secrets of her family's past and the ancient power in her bloodline. Now, Hellbender, it's the latest film from the upstate filmmaker family, the Adams. It's written, directed, produced, scored, edited by Toby Poser, by John Adams, by Zelda Adams, and it is the sixth feature from the Wonder Wheel Productions, which is the family-run production company founded by Poser and Adams and their kids. So, with all of that set up, let's go ahead and bring these folks in, and we have a trio of them all together. So let's bring in Toby, John, Lulu. Hey guys, and
Hi.
you're not alone because I also have Zelda right here.
Hello.
Hey, it's the whole family together. I appreciate you guys gathering together for this. Okay, so in as much as you could say, so the trio, you guys are currently in the Catskills right now?
We are. We're up outside of Roscoe, New York.
Okay, all right. And Zelda, whereabouts are you? I kind of expected Lulu to come in from somewhere else, and then you to be with mom and dad. But where are you at?
Yeah, this is a little bit different. I'm actually in New York City right now, quarantining, so that's been fun.
Right on. Well, as I was saying to your dad backstage, I'm in Brooklyn, so who knows, you might hear, instead of the sounds of chirping birds like you might hear in the Catskills, you might hear just traffic and people shouting at each other. That's our natural, that's our wildlife of
If you hear any
Brooklyn.
sirens, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, okay. To begin with, let's ask, what is a hellbender? And why don't Zelda, why don't you answer that question? What's a hellbender?
Sure. I mean, Hellbender is a totally new mythological creature that, we developed on our own. We call it a mix between a demon, an apex predator, and something else. What do we call it, Toby?
A witch.
And a witch, right. But we don't ever really try to use the words witch because we didn't want to make another witch movie. We just wanted to create something entirely new. So a hellbender is a creature that feeds off the fear that pumps in blood. And yeah.
All right. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? John, Toby, Lulu, on what a hellbender is?
Sure. They're also they're from a matrilineal descent, and these particular hellbenders rock out on a mountaintop, casting their spells to rock and roll from way up, like Merlin on a mountaintop. that's how these hellbenders practice their magic.
There is, there is kind of definitely a metal vibe to this a punk metal vibe to this movie, which I really like. Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the music a little bit later, but I do want to tease out Hellbender is also the name of the band that Mother and Izzy are they create and create music in their, I guess, their basement, right? Yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I want to get a sense of who these characters really are when we first meet them. Toby, who is Mother, and then I would even say, is she a good mother?
She's a good mother. Yeah, I think she's a good mother, and she's also sometimes not a good mother. It depends on what you want to call a mother who wants to protect her daughter at the expense of the daughter following her true nature. Then she's not a great mother.
Okay.
I think she's a great mother. I think she's just doing the best she can, and the circumstances that are before her are very complicated. And she's a good mother, and she has a great daughter, but a lot of crazy shit is going down. And that's the cross that she has to bear. Upside down cross, I guess.
Okay. And Zelda, it looked like you were going to weigh in on that too.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do think that the mother is a great person. She thinks that she is doing what is right, but is it? One of the things is that she's kind of hindering Izzy from pursuing her true nature as a hellbender, and is that okay? She wants to raise Izzy more as a human than as a hellbender, but being a hellbender is in Izzy's nature. So, what's right and what's wrong?
And talk a little bit about who Izzy is as a character when we first meet her, because as I said in sort of the setup, we know that she's been isolated, we know that she's alone up there, but give us a little bit more kind of color on who Izzy is when we first meet her.
Yeah, so I would say Izzy's a sweet, like, punk kid, and her mom has raised her really well. They're practically best friends. They're in a rock band together. Who would want anything more? But she's sick and she's kept away from everyone else. And, she misses that extra touch of, wow, what if, we could go play out? We could go play our rock shows out in front of people and share our art with the world. And soon she starts to discover that she's not really sick. There's something else there that her mom has been keeping from her. And throughout this story, she gets to discover her true nature.
Hmm. Well, actually, that's a perfect segue. We actually have a little bit of a clip here that I'm going to throw to, and when we come back, I have some additional questions. But let's go ahead and take a look at I would say, pivotal moment from Hellbender dropping on Shudder on February 24th.
In celebration of our new friend and her first tequila shot, I will place in one of these cups not the typical dead worm you'd find at the bottom of a bottle, but a real, live, bloody bodacious earthworm. Drink up.
I'm vegetarian.
You were a vegetarian. Now you're a wormitarian.
Oh, come on, guys. Leave her alone. I'll have the worm.
No, them's the rules. You get the worm, you eat the worm. Come on, kid. It'll give you superhuman strength.
Hold your nose. You won't even taste it.
don't know who that one kid is, but he's kind of a dick, or his character is, but but he's like he's definitely one of those characters that in a horror movie you just like you hope he gets his at some point.
But he is the only one who went back for the tequila bottle. So
Well, okay, so based on what we've seen, Lulu, you play Amber, who we see in this scene. Kind of explain, what just was unfolding there, and a little bit more about who Amber is.
Yeah. So Amber's she's a bit of light and fun in the movie. We do talk about a lot of dark things and there's a lot of transitions and changes. And Amber is kind of this fun aspect and almost comic relief, I think, that comes in and kind of brings a bit of light and opens up Zelda to that other world that she could delve into. There's a couple different ways that Zelda could go, and she's her first introduction of a possible option and something that kind of lures her into that and shows her the fun and naivety and the playfulness and the rectfulness of how she could possibly be living as a teenager if she wasn't at home.
And also, like Izzy may be in a punk band, but she just met a punk. And that's what's kind of fun. She's seeing like, oh, okay, I'm in a punk band, but this is what a punk is. And this looks kind of fun to me.
And what I kind of find interesting about Amber is our initial introduction to her is, yes, she represents the outside world to Izzy, the outside world that she hasn't really experienced yet. And she's not necessarily like it seems like a cool kid, but she's not a mean girl from the outset, which is kind of it kind of plays against type a little bit. Was that something that you guys were thinking about when you're constructing these best friend relationship, that you didn't want to go straight to the mean girl kind of approach?
Yeah, I like to think that Amber herself has, she lives in isolation as well, not to the extent that Izzy does, but she says, well, my house isn't nearly this nice, and she's crashed the Sidiots' house, she calls them, because her life isn't so swell either. So to me, there's a nice balance there between them, that if they were to be able to explore friendship, they're both looking for something that they don't have.
Mm-hmm. I want to bring up just a comment that someone sent our way. Brilliant sound effects on that swallow, and that is good. But and that's also worth noting. John, in addition to Zelda, Toby, and John co-writing and directing this and putting this together, John, you were also working on the sound design on this, correct? And tell me a little bit about what your approach was with the sound design, and in that specific scene, kind of what you were going for there.
Yeah, I love doing sound design. Sound design is super important to our movies, because since we don't have a lot of money, another way that we can tell a story is through the sound. So the band's music was really important. The lyrics within all the music is very important, because it does tell a story and it helps us with our production. But like sound design, like the worm hitting the glass and the little things that start happening when Izzy starts feeling these powers are really important, because visually it's really hard to tell that story, but sound wise, trying to find original offsetting kind of dissonant little stingers, they really help people begin to feel like maybe what this kid is feeling. And that was the hope with the sound design. And the other hope was to try to be original, try to find something different than maybe the general sound trappings of horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun because we bring our little Sennheiser mics with us anywhere we go. When we were making this film, we were traveling around a lot, and we were also biking around a lot with our camera bags like strapped on our shoulders. And when we were biking, we were on the coast, so our bikes got really rusty and nasty. And I was going down like this little alleyway, and I was hitting the brakes, and this huge screech got let out. And John was like, do that again. And he like whipped out the mic and recorded the screech of like the bike. And a lot of like the soundtrack of Hellbender, the sound effects are made from like a distorted version of that bike screech. It's so interesting. It's all so homemade.
Yeah. Well, again, another comment from someone that's like, this mud is particularly squishy. Let's record it.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must be a cousin of ours. I mean, that sounds like a cousin or an uncle.
Yeah,
The
sometimes if John is recording something, doing something downstairs, and we're walking upstairs, and we step on a certain floorboard, he'll be like, "Do that again about 10 times." You know, and then he'll kind of put it backwards, and it makes the coolest sound.
there's this sense that, and again, it's kind of teased in the synopsis, but there's this sense that Mother has a past, and we kind of learn about that a little bit. I think in the promo copy, it's dark secrets of Izzy's past and the ancient power in her bloodline. Is Mother really truly beyond her past, Toby?
I don't think so. I think there's a little bit of the kind of mother who sneaks off to take a nip of this or a toke of this or that when her kids aren't looking. I think I don't think she's extending the kind of carnage that she once did. But I think it's up for interpretation. When she looks outside at a deer, and then the next time you see her and her mouth is covered with blood, I'm pretty sure that she's enjoying that deer. I think what her concern is that if her daughter starts enjoying deer, then she might start enjoying humans too. But
Yeah.
I don't think Mother is fully done, and I think that's at the end. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I think Izzy would like nothing more than for her mother to be a real hellbender and let it rip with her.
Hmm. Well, and again, without giving, I don't know if this is. I'm not going to say it. I'll let you say it. But John, you're not just behind the scenes on this. You do appear in the film as well.
Yes, yeah, we can mention this one because it's 20 minutes in. I
Yeah.
get completely dusted because the mother's protecting her kid, and it's like this guy trespasses, and it was just a great way to just show exactly what you just asked. Is she really done being a hellbender? Absolutely not. She's a hellbender when it's her, and it's her nature. In a sense, that scene like shows she's a wicked hellbender. This guy's trespassing. He could possibly blow the whole secret that she's hiding from her daughter. And so she just doesn't even take any chances at all. She leaves nothing to chance, and she just totally dusts this guy. Also, since we're a crew of 3, it was a lot easier for me just to get dusted and get back behind the camera and film and do audio and let these guys run the show because they're really great actresses and fun to watch. So it was also a little bit of like, I think I just want to get killed so I can just get behind the camera.
Something I was really kind of noticing that sort of spoke to me, I think, is this is not, I mentioned coming of age story, and it is, but it's more than that. It's sort of who are we coming from, and I think specifically that scene sort of sets up the switch is flipped with Izzy, that she's got to start wondering about who her mother is, what her lineage is. I kind of want both Zelda and Lulu to speak to this story about, do you find that there's an appeal in wondering who are we really, who are we coming from, questioning the idea of who our parents are?
Yeah, actually, part of this did come from inspiration of Toby learning about her heritage, her background. And I feel like Toby can say a lot more on that than I can, but there was a lot of inspiration of, what do you actually come from? What do you carry on? How much power do you have in passing that on or not continuing that? And a bit of that teenage kind of getting a nice taster of both of those sides.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Toby.
Oh, no, please.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like the relationship between Mom and Izzy and the relationship between Lula, me, and our parents now is very different. I think John and Toby are extremely open with us about like their past and where they've been and their stories and everything, and who they are. And however, I think that the mother keeps a lot of that away from Izzy.
Mhm.
Um, So I think we were kind of telling an opposite story from like the life that we really live. And that's kind of just our personal play on like family dynamics. You know, a lot of parents will be strict and hide a lot of things from their children, and then the children end up being sneaky and pursuing those things that their parents hide from them. But in real life, you know, John and Toby are extremely open about all these things, and if anything, I'm just like, all right, I don't need to do those things because they've told me all about it.
Yeah, and you can also kind of understand why some parents do want to hide things. I'm not saying that's the right choice for us. It's not. We think we protect our kids better by illuminating all the things that can go wrong. But you can understand why some parents do hide things because they just love their kid. They want their kids to be safe.
And this story was born because Toby's mother and father hid something very important from her whole life, and her mother revealed it on her deathbed, which was that the man who raised Toby wasn't actually her blood father. She was donor conceived. And we were together when we found that out in the hospital. And it was a bombshell, as you can imagine. And we got into the car and I looked at her and I was like, holy shit. That I'm speechless. And she was speechless too. But immediately it became a story seed. And I think I won't speak for Toby because she can speak for herself and she's sitting right here. I think Hellbender was a super cool cathartic experience. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, please speak to that.
It was pretty cool. I mean, when you don't know when you're 50 years old and you're like, wow, who is my dad? And you make films, you can't help but take it to, well, was he a creep? Was he a serial murderer? You know, or who is this dude? And so it ends up he was a really nice Jewish doctor. and so I got a little lucky there on that front. But yeah, you know, and I actually I've discovered all these siblings, these half siblings. I'm the oldest of 8 new siblings that I have. And it's pretty cool. And when I got to know these siblings, I realized there is a lot to be said about nature because we're a lot of like in many ways. Our core nature is very similar. I'd say, well, I'm more like them than the brother that I was raised with, who I'm not biologically related to at all. And so it's neat, you know, the whole question of nature and nurture. It really inspired this movie, and whether it's good to suppress that nature. What is that nature? If you're a coyote or a wolf, is it bad that you want to kill a lamb? No, it's not. Is it bad that a hellbender wants to eat a human? Well, to a hellbender, it's not. You know, we had fun playing with all these questions.
Do you think that? Well, did this story that emerged? I'm kind of processing that is a bombshell. Do you think the story that emerged from this family bombshell did it kind of spring forth fairly formed as far as not hellbenders, I guess, but you know, there's this alternate path where you can find out that you mentioned axe murderer, that you could find out that your parents were an axe murderer and they're out and out a villain and they continue being an axe murderer and maybe they want you to be an axe murderer, maybe not. Or there's this path where mother is trying to hide Izzy from the secret. Was it automatically this one path of the mother protecting Izzy, or was it there's a version of Hellbender where she's like, all right, yeah, let's tear shit up?
You know, it's such a great question, Aaron. When we were first planning, you know, starting to shoot Hellbender, we had a very different story in mind, and the pandemic actually changed that and whittled it down to something much more intimate, which is the Hellbender we created. But at first, you know, they were going to be these really monstrous things whose jaws could unhinge like a snake and drop to the floor, and humans could probably walk inside of it. You know, they were so monstrous, and they ate babies, and you know, so there was a time when we were going to go in the direction of real evil and carnage, and the mother, and there was going to be a big, blowout between the old Hellbender and the new generation of Hellbender, and we realized we weren't quite up for that, and it didn't. And in the end, it was a fun fantasy. So we shifted to the other path, which is the path that we have.
It's like the shark not working in Jaws created a better movie. Sometimes I wouldn't say this is a quieter movie by any stretch, but it's having to make more of those intimate choices, I think, works in its favor. In fact, I would say really a compliment I could give this movie is that it really feels balanced, because it's not just evil mother, horrible kid, evil kids, weak innocent mother. It's I find myself at different times throughout this movie rooting for Zelda's character, and then Toby, your character. And I don't quite know which one I'm rooting for more. Is that like, definitely, was that an intention going into this, that because there's a lot of horror movies where, I don't know, Carrie springs to mind, where it's a horrible parent and an abused child, or some other version of it. Was it really an intentional decision to make this balanced?
Yeah,
It's so important to us to have the antagonist and the protagonist keep flipping. In the movie we made before this, The Deep You Dig, the antagonist, actually, hopefully the audience sometimes in that movie also, like, wow, I really feel for this guy. I kind of like almost like him. And we definitely wanted to keep flipping the antagonist protagonist roles in Hellbender. And because we wanted the audience to ask, I think what's fun about Hellbender, and hopefully the audience will find it fun, is who gets to sit in the seat of judgment and why. Like, so it's like there's a poem in the movie that talks about a wolf, and a wolf is a wolf, but from a lamb's point of view, a wolf is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. But from a wolf's point of view, a lamb is a tasty meal, and it should eat the tasty meal. And so from a human point of view, a Hellbender is evil, like real evil, because what it does to humans is really dark and twisted. And but from Hellbender's point of view, doing those dark and twisted things is actually like really excellent following of your nature. And so it's fun to ask yourself, like, how should I judge these people? I think it's fun, and I hope the audience enjoys that kind of questionable problem.
Yeah. Zelda, you were speaking about the balance of it as well.
No, yeah, definitely. Like, we always want the audience to go home and wonder, oh, damn, I don't really know who is right or who is wrong. This is because, characters are so complex. And, we watch a lot of movies together. We just recently rewatched like the entire Marvel series. And we started talking about Thanos, who is, the antagonist. We were like, wait, he's kind of a little bit right. Why do we all hate him again? So it's really fun when you watch a movie and you're on the fence about, oh, I don't know how to feel. So yeah, we definitely really wanted to do that.
I didn't expect Thanos to come up in this conversation, but I'm here for it. Was there any kind of like, I mean, obviously you guys have already worked together on films, and you are a team, you are a crew, but when you're also exploring family situations, were you finding there were new things coming out about one another and about your interactions with one another? I mean, even, I'll start with you, Lulu. I know you kind of came in and you were filming somewhat socially distanced at one point, and you're playing this friend to Zelda's Izzy, but you're also obviously a sister in real life. Were you guys finding new things out about one another, especially since you were coming in from college, right?
Yeah, I had already graduated, and I was just teaching in Oregon, so I was living on the other side of the coast. But I came back like for a summer, and we did some of those summer shots by the pool with the worm, and then also did some filming over down on the West Coast, up in the Pacific Northwest. But discovering, I think, always just mild things, just because, I mean, my sister and I are both, and everybody are always changing, that it was great to see Zelda at a different time. And she was doing her online schooling now while they did the road trip over during the pandemic. And I was out of college and doing this new career I was trying out. So I think there was the newness in that way of just small kind of sister bonding, being like, so what are you into now? What are you doing? You're in calculus? Damn, I never did calculus. Things like that. Um, but mostly just dealing with the pandemic and kind of using it to our advantage in filming, because it made it so authentic that Zelda and I are close and we are sisters and we've always grown up together as friends. And now we had to play fresh friends apart with that awkwardness.
I I I would also add that I learned how I've always known Lulu's a fantastic actress, but this movie especially, she did some true like method acting or something because we all were watching her act from behind the camera and we were like, what the hell? Is she okay? Like, we need to send her to a therapist and make sure everything's okay. I won't give anything away, but the second half of the movie, watch the scenes and put yourself in our shoes.
It's so true. You know, Lulu, she's a bubbly, really happy person. And she could be talking, cracking jokes, farting. And the next minute, we're like, we got to shoot. And she'd be like, "Ah." She was a great scream queen.
That's great. And Toby, what about you? I mean, and John, like, but when you're sharing scenes together, Toby and Zelda, were you kind of discovering new things about your daughter, even though you've obviously already worked behind the scenes and on camera with her before?
I'm always astounded when I'm on camera with Zelda, just how powerful she is. A hellbender. She is one powerful, like, young woman, and so sometimes when I would be working with her, I would kind of there are moments where I would get lost in my motherness, where I just thought, oh my God, I love this kid so much. And I wish I could have acted with Lulu because I would have felt the same way. But then there are other moments where I would completely step out of myself and be like, damn, she is fierce. So no, it just reminded me about what a powerful young thing she is.
Oh.
This is a world of magic. And well, I mean, first off, I mean, I know, Zelda, you said you didn't want to kind of go in the direction of full on witch, but there's a witchy vibe to it, which I love. Kind of why go in this occult? I mean, you even mentioned sort of the Marvel movies, and this could be a movie about a mutant gaining powers. This could be essentially a version of a superhero movie. Why did you go towards the occult? Why'd you go towards the world of magic? And additionally, did you guys do any kind of occult research or witchy studies to inform your approach on that? And Zelda, why don't you begin?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we just love working like with what's at our disposal, and nature is always there for us. In every single one of our movies, we've always taken advantage of nature. She's always there whenever you need her. So I would say a lot of our story and like the creation of Hellbenders is directed around the nature around us. It's very isolating, and there's a lot of hidden magic within nature. And John is really good at talking about this, but we did want to explore the idea of hidden magic because that's something that we experience a lot where we live up in the mountains of the Catskills. Right, John?
Yeah, you nailed it, kiddo. Absolutely. We live in beautiful spaces, and you see the clouds blow in, and you see the algae and the ferns, and you ask yourself, you're like, there's magic there. I just don't know how to harness it, but I know it's there. And so we allowed the Hellbenders to know how to harness that magic. It was in their DNA. They know what to do with ferns and moss and mushrooms.
I absolutely, I mean, as someone that really loves this stuff, yeah, the surrounding, the natural surrounding of this film really does. It's almost like a character in of itself that really lends itself to the feeling of life and this flowing magic throughout. Where there and there is this scene where we kind of see some flexing of powers as the magic is tapped into, and I guess, like, did you guys establish certain rules to the Hellbender universe about what they could and could not do and how far their power could stretch? Lulu, you're shaking your head. Toby, you're shaking your head. I mean, whoever wants to dive in on rules. I love hearing about universal rules.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun building this Hellbender world, and again, it did hint, in many ways, hinged upon nature, and the Ouroboros. So if you think about the cyclical nature of nature, that
Mhm.
one season consumes the last and gives birth to the next, um, and the brutality and beauty of nature in equal measure. You know, where we live, we constantly hear coyotes howling and rabbits dying, and then you have the rivers as well, you know, eating away the human forms like roads. You know, everything's just devouring everything. And the Ouroboros, the snake that eats its tail, was big. That was sort of like a wonderful kind of theme for us. In fact, originally we thought, well, maybe they're descendants of the Libyan goddess Lamia, the serpent goddess Lamia. So we didn't go that direction, but all those things influence us for sure. And then another thing I wanted to mention too, another rule about their, well, two things. As far as their magic goes and the spells that we created for them, we base them in the most rudimentary language. And we thought, well, they're surrounded by nature. What does nature offer that's simple? In the way that a kid sits in the mud and makes mud pies and creates things out of stick candle, you know, castles out of sand. We thought, everything in their magic should be, you know, created from the resources of nature. So you have, you know, ivy makes your hands sticky, you know, and you can climb trees. The sigils that they make to spy on each other, uh, you know, they paint with blood and bird's feathers, and it looks like an eye. So all of these things have a very strange, crude logic to them that we had so much fun. And we also thought, you know, if they say a poem, it should sound like they're doing a rope, like a little kid. So we were trying to have kid logic.
Mhm.
Then lastly, another thing that the blood, we were really interested in the blood. The magic comes from the fear in the blood, because historically, if you think of women and the persecution of witches, um, basically it was people who were just feared of very powerful, resourceful women. We thought, well, if your fear is going to be our end, then we're going to devour that fear and grow strong from it. And so that's really the Hellbender magic in a crux.
Well, there's a practicality to the magic, as you said, like using what's around you, and we're kind of introduced to that early on, even before we're necessarily seeing the magic side of things. Just them eating, roots, eating the things that are around them, and then eating other things. It's practical. And I think that kind of adds to sort of the practical lending to the magical. The let's you guys, as I mentioned balance earlier, you as a family seem very balanced. I know this was a shared writing project and directing project. When you guys are all working together, what is the process? How are you breaking down the writing? How are you breaking down the directing? Does everyone kind of take turns? Everybody gets equal say on everything? How does it go? And I'll throw this to John, why don't you start and then we'll go around.
I think that at this point we've made 6 movies together, so we all understand each other's strengths and we understand where people like to be in the process. And like Toby is a wonderful writer who understands how to complete circles and story arcs. So we may come up with stories on the way to soccer practice and shoot ideas around, but when it comes down to, okay, this is what we're going to do, we drop it in Toby's lap and Toby takes the skeleton and puts meat on it. What do you think, Lulu?
Yeah, I think Toby is like the great organizer and really keeps us in line and writes things down. And she is a talented writer as well and has been an actress her whole life. So that has a lot of influence on how she understands the screenplay. And then John creates the music, does all the sound effects, does all the editing on the computer, and then everybody kind of has a fair share in like setting up the mic if someone needs to record something. And with camera shooting, there's a lot of who is not in front of the camera right now goes and films behind, because everybody has about the same understanding, and so just it's kind of necessity based. And usually if there are a few people free, or even the actors, we kind of take turns. Like we don't follow the scene exactly by how it's written. You know, we kind of get into our characters and each have a say. And you know, I don't think your character would say that. Yeah, I don't think mine would say that either. How about you think of something, you think of something, let's try each of those lines or each of those shots. And like Zelda's really great at creative movement shots, and she really ran the drone most of the time in Hellbender, and so Zelda had a lot of that say in movement and creativity behind the camera.
Toby and Zelda, do you want to weigh in any further on that?
I think one of the most what's it called, unforgotten like roles behind the camera is the BS monitor, and that's Lulu. We always bring a scene to her and say, what do you think about this? And she's like, my BS monitor says it's not good enough, or it's not scary enough, not bloody enough. So you can always rely on her.
Lulu, for the times that you were not automatically there, were you still seeing dailies? Were you still kind of patched into the production?
Kind of a mix across. Like I didn't get like huge videos ever really, I think, from across the country, but it was more like, hey, what do you think about this? Or discussing things on the phone and talking about, hey, we might need you to scream in a field somewhere. And I live in the city. Oh fuck. I got to go find a park to scream in and get out of there real quick after and have no questions.
Yeah, that can be difficult. But, and a good test of like any good Samaritans right around you, I guess. I know we're kind of winding down on time. I have to ask about the music. First off, like the music really kicks ass in this, and I know that again, like that is a product of, you know, the family coming together. Who was really taking lead on it? Who was writing it? Like, just walk me through this music production, and also are we able to listen to the Hellbender music outside of watching it on Shudder? So whoever wants to dive in with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much, first of all. We've been making music for ever since I could remember. I've always been raised on John and Toby's music, a lot of, you know, hardcore and metal and grunge. And when I was 8 years old, I started playing drums, and John and I made our first band together called Kid California. And we did some like live shows. That was really fun. But then I started getting more into singing, and so too did Lulu and Toby. So that's where Hellbender, our band, but all of the E's are sixes. So we have some 666 action. That's fun. But that's where Hellbender was born. And we kind of combined all of our musical interests together. So it's a really wonderful combination of a lot of different styles. And I think within the past couple of years, we've definitely started finding ourselves. And you know, John is like a powerhouse. He pumps out like 5 songs a day. I crap you not. It's actually ridiculous. We'll come home from filming and he's like, yo, check out this riff. And we need to put your voice on this right now. And Toby, Lulu, and I will all sing on it. And because we're related, they each have like these similar sounds. And it's really cool when we layer them together. And a lot of times the music comes first, and then we film around the music, because it's really fun shooting along music. It just provides that tone that we need and really brings the story along.
Yeah, and somebody just asked the question about where does Hellbender, which comes first, the movie or the band? And actually, the band came first, and we were shooting a video in to a song we have called Black Sky, and a kind of editing mistake happened in the process, and we fell in love with the mistake. And once we figured out the architecture of that mistake, we thought, you know what, this would be really kick-ass in a movie. This could really like inform like visions and stuff like that. And so all of our visions and the book visions in the Hellbender movie are from a video that we made before the movie, and kind of inspired us to, let's take this idea of these like not witches, but these powerful beings, and make a whole movie about it. That
Okay.
Toby's big reveal.
Yeah, big reveal.
Very big.
Yes. And wait, can we listen to the music elsewhere?
Yeah, the music, a lot of our release songs are on like Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, and we have, a lot of music videos on YouTube that we've made, including the one that inspired Hellbender, Black Sky. But we are working with a company called Ship to Shore, and they're going to be releasing the soundtrack for Hellbender on vinyl, which is
Right on.
so exciting. There's like 23 songs on it, a lot of them that didn't make it into the movie that I think people will really, really like. So keep a lookout.
I guess before I let you go, the world that you've set up could be larger than just the characters that we're seeing here, and we know that there is history to Mother, at least in the lineage. So I guess what I'm leading up to, especially since Zelda, you mentioned Marvel movies and Thanos and everything, is there the potential for sequels for a Hellbender cinematic universe?
Hey, I would absolutely love that. I think Izzy should go on tour.
Lulu, would you come back as a Hellbender and a sequel?
Oh, fuck yeah, I would love to play Hellbender. I'd love to do that.
Toby, John, can we see more out of this universe?
Oh, it'd be so fun. Just like all the people in the music industry getting ripped apart by a Hellbender band. I mean, how great would that be?
And after
I would love to see it.
Well,
guys, I've taken up a lot of your time. I really appreciate you being here. I'm gonna take you guys into the backstage, so hang out with me for just one moment. But the movie is Hellbender. It is dropping on Thursday, February 24th on Shudder, the horror streaming service, and I'm very appreciative to have Zelda, Toby, Lulu, John, all the family of the Adams family and the creative team behind this. I can't wait to see what you guys have up next. So thank you each for your time. And hey, it was a hell of a movie, and people need to check it out as soon as it drops. So thank you guys so very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Aaron.
And guys, I want to thank you for listening, and do check out Hellbender. Seriously, it is so worth your time. It's, horror movies. I love horror movies, and it's so nice when we see like an indie movie and one that really has passion behind it and really shines. And I can honestly say that is true for Hellbender, and not just me, because last time I checked, it has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is certified fresh. So check it out. Meanwhile, thank you for joining another Talking Strange. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Download Talking Strange every week on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a little, nice review, rating. Give us some love. We like some love. And also, give me a follow on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Patreon at Aaron Sagers. Watch our interviews at youtube.com/denofgeekus. And hey, until next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.